Before we begin this podcast, please be advised that the following episode contains language that some listeners may find offensive and inappropriate. The opinions expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not reflect the views of the podcast producers. Listener discretion is advised.
I think what we're about to get into, it's going to be difficult to hear, but you're going to be basically telling me what you did as a child.
It was a nightmare. My case is extremely stupid, but stupid hurts.
But dude, I can't fucking imagine you being out on the streets. I'm going to be honest with you. The crazy thing about this is it seems like everybody involved, from the perpetrators to the victims, are all children.
I moved out here to the Midwest, and all of a sudden I felt like an outsider.
Whenever you shot him in the head, did he look back up at you as you put the gun there?
Once I pulled that trigger, I felt like there was no turning back.
You are now listening to the podcast Voices of a Killer. I'm bringing you the stories from the perspective of the people that have taken the life of another human and their current situation thereafter in prison. You will see that although these are the folks that we have been programmed to hate, they all have something in common. They are all humans like us that admit that they made a mistake. Will you forgive them or will you condemn them? They are currently serving time for their murders, and they give us an inside glimpse of what took place when they killed and their feelings on the matter now. Here are the voices of those who have killed. One rainy evening in 1977, Camden County police entered a lake cabin in the Ozarks, where they found what can only be described as a bloodbath. 4 young children lay slaughtered inside their family home, stabbed, shot, and beaten in various ways, and strewn across the house. But while police initially profiled the culprit as a young adult man, little did they know that the real killer, who lived a few doors down, was only a 14-year-old boy named Billy Dyer. Today, Billy joins us to revisit the crime that rattled a quiet Ozark community and traumatized a young family as we seek the answer to one question: why did he do it? In this 2-part episode, Billy gives us his exclusive insight into that night and details what it was that drove him to do it. We'll discuss the long-lasting repercussions of Billy's crime and the complex ethics of charging a juvenile for a crime like Billy's. This story will be difficult to listen to and even harder to begin to understand. So listen closely as we hear Billy's recollection of this crime in this episode of Voices of a Killer.
So Billy, I read that you're from Missouri. Were you born and raised in the Ozarks?
No, I'm from Connecticut.
Connecticut. Okay.
Yeah, I actually moved to Missouri 4 months prior.
Oh, so what was your family like in Connecticut? What did you do there as a child?
I mean, I was a kid, of course, so my folks ended up divorcing.
Oh.
They split up. We ended up moving for a short time to New Jersey.
How old were you whenever they split?
13.
Why did they get a divorce?
They should have got divorced many years before. The marriage that was in it. Yeah, it was just an unhappy marriage. Very unhappy marriage.
And usually this part of my podcast, I kind of skim over the childhood, but you were a really young child when your crime happened. So when they got a divorce, did you see a lot of fighting and stuff in your household?
Of course, yeah, lots of it, yeah.
What?
Yeah, you got two bitter people, just constant arguing. They never slept in the same room, of course, my parents didn't. But hell, they got to where they worked different jobs at different hours just so they didn't have to be around each other. And my dad was an alcoholic.
What kind of drunk was he?
He was a beer drinker. He wasn't a hard liquor drinker, but what he would do is he would come home at the end of the day, and he would be on call. He was a heating and air conditioning guy, so of course he was on call all through the night. They could call him and have him go out on a repair. But he'd come home and he would just start sipping his beer, watching TV, and that's all he did every night, or sit on the back porch and sip his beer. And he was just bitter. He was just bitter about life. He complained about everything.
Did you have siblings?
I have 2 brothers, both older.
Do you have a relationship with them now?
Not really, no.
Is it in the negative or just neutral or what?
No, it's just neutral. They just have their own lives. One of them turned out like my father. He's an alcoholic. The other one he's married. He's got a family up in Minnesota.
So were they older or younger brothers?
They were both older than I.
Older than you. How was your relationship as a child with them?
Not bad. I mean, of course, they were both a couple of years older than me. They were closer in age with each other than I was, so they hung out together. Yeah. So I was the youngest of the bunch, and I was always off by myself.
I was just going to say, I have 3 older brothers, so I kind of know what it's like to have brothers. They ever pick on you or anything?
No, not really. No, I'm not normal brother stuff.
Normal stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it was actually, we got a pretty good relationship for real.
So did your parents ever abuse you or your brothers?
Well, my dad he wasn't physically abusive.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of times, yeah, but as far as hitting you, but he was very demeaning and very verbal.
Yeah.
And he was cruel in other ways. When he would get drunk, my dad liked to kill animals.
He liked to kill animals?
My dad would get drunk and he would kill the cat. You know what I mean? Or he would kill pets.
Like many occasions or like this one time?
No, it happened several times. Yeah, it had happened several times.
What did your mom think about that?
My mom, of course, I think that was part of the problem. She thought she like I said, that marriage should have ended at least 10 years before it did. But no, she was not happy with it.
Yeah,
it was bad.
In the year 1976, 1 million couples got divorced across the U.S., and Billy Dyer's parents were one of them. At the time, Billy was a regular kid living in Connecticut with his 2 older brothers. The youngest in the family, he often felt like the odd one out and kept to himself, a pattern we'll see recurring throughout his life. A young Billy had to contend with a turbulent family home and a father who was a bitter alcoholic with a cruel streak. From the way Billy talks about his dad, it's clear that they had a challenging relationship, and Billy even recalls his dad's disturbing habit of killing animals when he fell into a drunken rage. Eventually, the stormy marriage between Billy's parents collapsed in divorce. By 1976, Billy's mom hopped states to Missouri with a new boyfriend, taking Billy, now 13, with her. This marked a big shift in his life, as Billy, an East Coast kid all his life, traveled 1,200 miles out west to the picturesque system of lakes at the heart of Missouri known as the Ozarks.
So you eventually, because of the divorce, I guess, your mother moved to the Ozarks in Missouri?
Right. What happened was after they split up in Connecticut, we moved to New Jersey. We moved in with a friend of my mom who later became my stepfather.
Oh, okay. How would your relationship with him?
Very good, actually. He was a good man.
Really?
He's passed away now, but he was a very good man. Yeah, he really was. He was everything my dad wasn't.
Well, it sounds like him coming in your life, that sounds, you kind of perked up a little bit. So he was a good influence?
Yeah. I think it would have been. I think it was too late.
Why was it too late?
Well, because I didn't last very long. Within a year, I was in jail.
Oh, because of this crime?
Yeah, because of this crime.
So he was somebody that you looked up to, I guess. Did he make your mom happy?
Yes, exactly. He treated my mom well. Yeah, he really did.
And so was it his idea to move to the Ozarks?
Yeah, the reason he wanted to move to the Ozarks was because his parents had moved out here, because he was from New Jersey. He was from South Jersey.
Yeah.
His parents had moved out here several years before, and his father had died in a house fire. So he decided to move out here to be with his mom.
Oh, I got you. Where at in the Ozarks?
Camden.
Oh, that's right, Camden. That's a pretty area. So you probably, as a kid moving out to that area, it's kind of probably a nice place to live, really, as a kid because of the lake and all that stuff. How did you take the moving? Because you're moving away from your real dad and different state. And
okay.
How would you take?
I didn't really, not very good. I didn't miss my dad at all.
You did?
For one,
yeah.
No. Me and my dad, I never had any love for my father. So, no, I didn't miss my dad. But I'll tell you what, I felt estranged when I moved out here. Because then I was an East Coast kid. You're growing up on the East Coast. You do things. I moved out here to the Midwest, and all of a sudden I felt like an outsider. I talk different people.
Yeah, were you kind of bitter about it?
I don't know if I was. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I was bitter.
Did people kind of poke at you?
No, the people didn't do anything to me. That's the thing about this crime. This crime it really is a shitty, bad crime because it's senseless.
Well, sure. Here's the thing, man. I know that you're probably a completely different person now. I mean, what we're about to get into for the listeners out there, you're a fucking child, man.
I know, but they don't see that.
I know. Here's the deal, man. It was still you that did it. It was the child portion of you. And I think what we're about to get into, it's going to be difficult to hear, but you're going to be basically telling me what you did as a child. And I think that 14 years old, man, I don't even, gosh, I feel like, I know everybody, and I'm not trying to, in no kind of way am I trying to say what you did was justified or anything like that. But 14, man, that's like pushing it. But I want to know, and just answer me this, is the victims in your case, what was the relationship you had with them? Were they just friends?
When we first, we were friends.
Okay.
They actually treated me. They actually treated me very well.
Okay. And one of those is Greg, and he's also got a brother named Steve. And then
that's true.
And then there's two sisters, Tanya and Stacy.
Yep.
In the spring of 1977, Billy and his mom moved into a mobile home in the Ozarks. The trailer, which belonged to the mother of Billy's stepdad, sat right in front of the Lake of the Ozarks, on a peninsula 13 miles from Camdenton that was lined with holiday resorts. The Ozarks must have been a sudden change of pace for Billy, with its laid-back lifestyle and rich beauty a far cry from the bustling Connecticut city he'd come from. And as the new kid with a funny accent, Billy found it hard to fit in here with his new peers. Among the few friends that Billy did make were the neighbors who lived 2 doors down. A summer Baptist church separated Billy's trailer from the small 2-bedroom lake cabin in which the Swift family lived. George Swift was a former police officer who had moved from Kansas City with his 19-year-old second wife, Joy. Into this tiny home, they settled with their 2 youngest kids, Tanya and Stacy, along with 2 of George's children from a previous marriage, 16-year-old Steve and 12-year-old Greg. Occasionally, the eldest daughter, Stephanie, stayed with the Swifts too. The older Swift kids were close in age to Billy, and before long, he took to hanging out at the cabin. Particularly, he struck up a friendship with Greg, who was enamored with the 2 pet snakes Billy had, a one-eyed king snake and a blue racer. Billy and Greg would play together and take the school bus together up to Camdenton. Once or twice, Billy stayed the night, and by summer, he had become a frequent fixture of the Swifts' Ozark home.
What kind of little boy were you back then? Like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, all that? What?
That's really hard to put a finger on. I was a loner. I spent a lot of time. I love the outdoors. I was an animal fanatic. I like the woods.
Did you ever have these episodes where you got extremely angry at another kid at 8, 9, 10 years old?
No. Up to the point where I'm not like that. I didn't have those little rage flashes or anything, no.
So around the time that this happened, I'm talking like maybe a month, 2 before, what was life like about a month or 2 or a week before this happened? What was life like for you?
Okay. I think I was losing touch.
You're 14 at the time?
Yeah, I was 14 at the time.
How does a 14-year-old lose touch?
Well, I felt so outside, and because I thought about this, you know how it is. You think about things over and over for years on end, trying to figure out why and all this other stuff.
Sure.
Why did I do this way back when? Of course, and to me, this whole thing, it's back then. I didn't know where to begin. I fell out of place out here. I didn't have any friends. The only one I had for a friend was a 20-year-old. That lived next door to us.
And having a friend was pretty important to you, wasn't it, at 14?
Yeah, and you know what? I think it was just as important to him, because I don't think he had any either.
The 20-year-old?
Yeah.
Is the 20-year-old your accomplice?
Yeah.
So this accomplice of yours, what's his name?
Ray Richardson.
Is he in prison?
No, he's dead.
Did he end up going to prison?
Yeah, he did 5 years, a little over, just under 6 years, I think.
He's your accomplice. He did 6 years. You're 14 years old, and you got what?
Yeah.
What was your sentence?
Well, I got 2 lives. He got 2 10-year sentences.
So, what was your relationship like with Ray? Was it y'all were just kind of mischievous together, or what?
Yeah, Ray kind of latched on to me when I moved out there, because he didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize till years later just how strange that was.
Yeah. Well,
Does that make sense? But yeah, he didn't. But yeah, in retrospect, he was actually looking up to me. Of course, I didn't realize it at the time.
right.
And I'm a dumbass. Yeah, I'm just a dumb kid.
Well, sure. 14. Donald, there's not.
I'm 14.
There's not really any.
I'm impulsive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you were an impulsive person back then?
Yeah, very, extremely. Yeah, I think I was very confused and very impulsive. Yeah, I think I was looking for attention.
Can you think of anything that you can tell me as an example of your impulsiveness?
Oh, heck. Oh, my God. I would do, sure, let's see, the fact that I went down there and came up with this whole stupid idea to begin with was, for one. I was acting up in school. I was getting in trouble in school. Oh, heck. No, I mean, it's really hard to remember. I was getting in a little trouble, but nothing major.
Who was Billy Dyer in 1977? Even Billy himself battles to pinpoint what had gone wrong in his life at that point. With the benefit of hindsight, Billy has now spent years agonizing over who that 14-year-old boy was, trying to analyze his own thoughts and locate any warning signs that might have precipitated his crime. What he can say for certain is that at 14, Billy had fallen off track in his life. In the Ozark region, he felt like an outsider and he regularly acted out, desperate for any attention he could get. During this time, Billy had also started up an unusual friendship with 20-year-old Ray Richardson. Ray was a loner who lived some 2 miles north. Despite their 6-year age gap, Ray and Billy became quick friends, possibly sharing the same challenge of making friends in the area. Looking back, the Swift parents would remember Billy as a strange boy with some concerning quirks. Once Billy brought over an animal trap and played with it, snapping it shut over and again. And Joy Swift kept a watchful eye on Billy at the time and started to worry that Billy was a bad influence on Greg, as the pair broke rules and got up to mischief when they were together. To outsiders, Billy might look to be just a lonely kid who was struggling to find his feet in a new town and make friends. But nobody could have forewarned the nightmarish plan that had started to formulate in young Billy's mind.
So, William, you said that you concocted this plan to hurt these people?
Yeah, I did.
Did you approach Ray and say, hey, I'd like to do A, B, and C?
Yeah. Yep, that's what happened.
What was his reaction whenever you said, I want to hurt these people?
Okay, it didn't start out like that.
Okay, how did it start?
The original idea was, we had lived next door to them for a brief period, the victims.
Yeah.
And the two boys were friends of mine I went to school. And I knew they had an extensive gun collection in the house because they had showed it to me.
Right.
And I came up with this idea to steal this gun collection. And I broached it to Ray. And, of course, Ray said, yeah, we'll do that. And deep down inside, I don't think he really believed I was serious. I think he just agreed to it.
But what you just explained was theft. Did you explain also in the deal that, hey, we're going to also kill some people?
That changed after a period. Because we talked about this for about a couple of weeks.
So a couple of weeks, y'all are talking about taking guns from them, basically?
Right. And then it was like, well, why don't we just wait till the parents are gone and just go in there and kill everybody and take the guns?
Who's the one that first said that?
Me. My dumbass.
Right. And what was his reaction, Ray's?
Again, he was like, he was agreeing with me.
Yeah.
But you know what? He did not believe it. In his mind, he thought I was just some confused ass because of what happened later. I think he was just going along with it because he needed the money.
Once you said that and you didn't get an objection, now you kind of got confirmation from the guy that's going to do this with you. In your head, what were the different types of ways you were going through that you were going to be able to accomplish killing them? Was it all the same way, or did you have different methods that went through your head?
Well, Ray had a pistol, but I also knew that they had guns in the house. So I thought I would just go up in and ask to see one of the guns because they would show them to me and then just turn the gun on them.
So, William, out of all the ideas, it was mainly going to be the gun situation, some kind of way you were going to shoot them?
Yep.
Yeah, there was no other methods that y'all thought about? Okay.
Well, no, yeah, I think we also had planned at one point after the fact to drive by the house and fire a flare through the window.
To burn the house or what?
To burn the house down, yeah.
So you guys basically came up with the idea. The final idea was to ask to look at the gun and then turn it on him.
Yeah.
How did he feel about that idea? Was he just said, yeah, that's fine, or did he have an opposition to that and wanted to do something different?
Actually, he acquiesced all the way. So, yeah, pretty much he was like, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Did y'all have a date and time that y'all wanted to do this when the parents were gone? Or
Yeah, we set it up for a Thursday night because that was a bingo night, and that way we knew that the parents wouldn't be home.
And how many people were going to be at the house that you had to tend to?
4.
And the crazy thing about this is it seems like everybody involved, from the perpetrators to the victims, are all children, except for maybe Ray. And I know that 14 years old, the thought process is not exactly keen, but during the process, was there any point in time, just one, where you were like, killing somebody it's not the right thing to do. It's going to hurt people and people's families. Did that ever go through your mind?
Do you mean prior to the actual event?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was. In fact, I had even mentioned it. I think I was wanting people to tell me not to do it because I told several people I was going to do it, including 2 adults.
Wow. Did you feel like whenever you kind of said it, you were being tough, and then whenever people were not saying don't do it, you were like, well, shit, now I got to do what I said? Was it something like that?
Yeah, of course, absolutely, yeah. Of course you're going to bat yourself at kids doing stupid things.
Who were the 2 adults?
My stepbrother, Scott, and his girlfriend.
How old were they?
At that time, Scott was, I want to say, 20. I remember Christy was 26, I think, 20. So mid-20s, mid to late 20s.
What was their...
Of course.
They just think you were 14-year-old bullshitting?
That's exactly what they thought. That's exactly what they thought, yep.
Wow.
In Joy Swift's later account of the fall of 1977, she wrote that Billy had an unhealthy obsession with guns for his age. After 8 years on the police force, her husband George had built up a substantial gun collection at his home, and this had perhaps stirred some kind of dark fascination within Billy Dyer. George had a .22 long rifle pistol used for target practice, a shotgun for hunting in Kansas, and a few collector's guns, some of which had never been fired. When the Swift children showed Billy this gun collection, he was hooked. Later, he was found paging through gun catalogs, talking about the gun his stepfather had promised as a birthday gift and asking where he could buy ammunition. Joy Swift found Billy's interest in guns unnerving, though it was more sinister than she could have guessed. Unknown to her, a plan was germinating in Billy's mind. He was going to steal George Swift's gun collection with his friend Ray. But over the weeks that followed, this plan evolved into something much darker. Billy planned to wait until the Swift parents were out of the house at Thursday night bingo. Then he would take the guns and kill the children. The motive behind Billy's plan is unclear. It sounds like he wanted to experience the thrill of bloodshed and the power of wielding a gun. And the curious thing is that Billy didn't try to keep his plan a secret. He openly spoke about it to several adults in his life and kids at school, none of whom did anything. Those around Billy dismissed it as the fanciful musings of a teenager and failed to recognize that Billy was serious. Disclosing his plans to others, however, gave Billy the confidence to turn what was a disturbing fantasy into a reality.
So you planned this for a Thursday evening while the parents were at bingo. You and Ray head over there at what time?
Yeah, Ray drove me there. Yep. About 7 o'clock.
How far was the drive?
At that time, we had moved. It was about maybe a half a mile.
What was the drive like? Did y'all talk about anything that you can recall?
No, not really. Of course, it was all on the same road. It was State Road AA. It was raining. He dropped me off because they didn't know Ray. So he dropped me off a short distance from the house.
He dropped,
So I went up there on my own.
Okay.
On my own, yeah.
Did he ever come, or you did the whole thing by yourself?
Yeah. No, he ended up coming after a minute.
Okay, so whenever he dropped you off and you're walking down the street, are you armed at all?
No, not at all. I didn't have anything on me at all.
Okay. And did they expect you to be there? Obviously, you can't text them. It's 1970s, but...
No, they didn't. They didn't know I was coming.
And people showing up at someone's house at that day and age is completely freaking normal. Would you admit there was no surprise that you showing up?
Yeah, probably not. No, yeah, especially me, because I was weird like that. Yeah, Billy's liable to show up at any time. Also, my dog had been missing for a couple of days, so that was the excuse for going down there, was when we were looking for the dog.
Gotcha. Did you knock, or did you just walk in?
I knocked.
Who was the first person that answered?
I want to say Greg.
Greg. Now, at this point, you're putting on a show, basically saying, I need to help looking for my dog, or have you seen the dog?
Yeah.
And they said,
have you seen my dog? She's been gone for,
Yeah, and once you got past the whole dog thing, were you like, hey, I want to see the guns?
No, what it was, I pulled Greg into the bedroom, into his dad's bedroom.
You pulled him in there?
Yeah, I motioned him and said, come here, let me talk to you, away from everybody else. Because he and I had been shooting his dad's .22 pistol a couple days before.
Okay.
So I used that as a point of entrance.
Yeah.
And I said, look, we might ought to reload that before he realizes somebody's been firing a weapon.
What did he say to that?
Yeah, he says, okay, that's a good idea.
So whenever y'all went into the bedroom, you take the gun out. What is your nerves like right then? Because now you're getting down to the last seconds of going through with this plan.
Yeah, now stuff's starting to get pretty intense.
Were you shaking, or was it felt like you were just, this was going to be okay? Or?
Yeah, I wasn't shaking. Because what I did was I actually talked him into walking outside of the house for some dumbass reason.
He takes the gun down. Does he put some rounds in it?
Yeah. Well, there was still a couple rounds in it.
Okay, so
he handed me the pistol. It was a revolver. He handed it to me, and I put it in my pants and covered it with my shirt, and we walked out of the house.
What did you tell him you wanted to talk to him outside for?
So his brother couldn't hear what we were talking about.
Okay, so y'all go outside. Where did y'all go? Around back, side?
Out to the backyard, yeah.
So y'all walk around to the backyard. Is he looking at you, or did he walk ahead of you, or what?
He kind of led the way, then turned around as we got out there to where he was standing facing me.
He was standing facing you? And was he?
Yeah.
And did you actually start telling him anything, or did you just pull the gun out?
I pulled the gun out and I cocked the hammer.
Okay, so you pull out the gun and you cock the hammer. And what was his reaction to you cocking the hammer?
He looked at me kind of strange, and he started to back away.
Did you feel like you had a look in your face or something?
Yeah, I think so. And then he started running. I said, come here, man. I'm just playing. I'm not going to do anything.
He ran?
And he turned around. Yeah, he turned around and started coming back.
How far did he run off?
No more than a couple of feet. He didn't really run. He just started backing away and started like he was going to run.
Yeah, and then you kind of coerced him back. How close up did he walk to you whenever you coerced him back?
I want to say no more than 6 feet.
So you're pretty close to him. Is that when you raised the gun to him?
Yeah, I don't even think I raised the gun. I think I just fired it from hip level.
Wow. What was his reaction when that pop went off and it hit him?
He just collapsed.
Where did the bullet hit him?
Through his left eye.
In his left eye. Wow.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts of doing that? You're 14 years old.
Okay.
You just took somebody's life.
Yeah. At that point, how do you even describe something like how that feels? Because tension is building at this point, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I could turn back at any time, turn back at any time. Once I pulled that trigger, I felt like there was no turning back. Instantly wished I wouldn't have did it. I instantly fucking wished I wouldn't have did it.
On the evening of September 15th, 1977, George and Joy Swift drove 13 miles through a dark, foggy night to play bingo at the American Legion Hall. They left behind their 4 kids, Steve, Greg, Tony, and Stacy. Knowing that the parents would be away Thursday, Billy chose this Thursday night to execute his bloody rampage. Ray dropped Billy 80 yards away from the Swift cabin, and Billy entered on the pretense of looking for his lost dog. Shortly after, he talked Greg into loading up his dad's .22 pistol that they'd been firing together a few days prior. Then Billy led him out into the backyard with the pistol tucked under his shirt. Once outside, Billy followed through with the deed he had been bragging about in the past few weeks. Billy shot his 12-year-old friend square in the eye at a 6-yard distance. Greg Swift fell instantly dead. This is only the start of the story of the night, but it's already difficult to listen to. Billy was shockingly young, a 14-year-old kid who had now killed one of his only friends for no tangible reason. He simply wanted to play out a crude fantasy he'd half concocted in his teenage imagination. Unlike the scripted shootouts he'd seen in TV shows or movies, the reality of shooting another person was not as exhilarating as Billy had imagined it to be. Instead, the sight of Greg bleeding onto the ground was gory, and Billy felt an instant wave of horror and regret. However, he felt he had reached a point of no return. After killing Greg, there was no undoing what he had done, Billy told himself, and wielding the pistol, he turned towards the Swift family home where the 3 other children remained. The ordeal continues after the break.
Why did you fucking shoot?
You know what? Again, I don't know. I felt like I backed myself into a corner, and I had to, because I ran my mouth. I told guys at school I was going to do it. I told Scott and his girlfriend. Ray was dead.
Did you look at him for a minute, or stare at him and just think for a second, or did you immediately turn around and walk away?
I thought a second. I didn't know. I didn't stare. I didn't want to stare. I was wanting everything over at that point, believe it or not.
You didn't feel disgusted by that?
Yeah, I did. As I said, at that point I wanted everything over. I wished it would have never started. It was instant regret.
So now,
but then I felt like I couldn't stop. At that point I was committed, yeah.
Yeah, big time. And I know you're just a child at the time, which is just so crazy because 14 years old, I just can't wrap my mind around that. But you actually go into the house, you have more rounds left in your gun.
Only one more. I didn't realize at the time, yeah.
You only had one more. So where's the first place that you went next?
Well, it was a very small house. There was only 3 rooms and a kitchen in this house, not counting the bathroom. A big living room and 2 very small bedrooms. And there was 6 people living in the house, 7 people living in the house. But so when I walked in the house, in the living room, Steve, the oldest brother, was sitting in a rocking chair watching TV.
So who's the first person you went to after that?
Steve.
Steve is the 15-year-old. Did you try to do the 15-year-old because he was the oldest?
Yep. And so he was sitting in a rocking chair watching TV.
Whenever you walked in, did he turn and look at you and say anything?
Kind of not. There were some strange events going on there. I didn't, but nothing major. So I said, "Hey, Steve, come outside, and come on outside and look at what me and Greg are doing." And he had some sort of smart ass remark to make. He said something like, "Screw you, pussy! I'm watching TV," or something like that.
Wow.
We're just talking shit, but and shot him in the head. Yeah.
Whenever you shot him in the head, did he look back up at you as you put the gun there?
No, I didn't get. I was probably 3 or 4 feet away, but I did extend my arm and aim.
Did he fall over?
Yeah, he immediately collapsed out of the chair. Yeah.
Now you're 2 murder victims within a minute apart. How are you feeling now?
This is where shit really starts going haywire.
Yeah, because your next is Tanya, who is 3 years old. Yeah,
because the first thing she started doing was screaming.
Where was she at?
Walking around the room. The 2 little ones were walking around the room. She just walked around the living room. So first thing, as soon as the gun went off, the first thing she started doing was screaming. So I tried to shoot her and nothing happened. And I tried it again and nothing happened. At that point, I'm panicking because, like I said, I just wanted this to be over. And then she's screaming. And then Steve on the floor is convulsing. And he's like in a semi-comatose state, and he's trying to push himself off the floor, but he keeps collapsing back in on the floor.
This didn't freak you out enough?
So I thought, I tried hitting her on the head with the butt of the gun, thinking that it would knock her out. Yeah. But kids don't know. You think things on TV, and believe me, it's nothing like that.
So you killed the 3-year-old by hitting her? Is that how it worked?
No, I didn't kill her, but I beat her on the head with the butt of the pistol probably a half a dozen times. And all I did was she started screaming. And that's when I panicked and ran out of the house.
Let me stop you for just a second. At your current state right now, do you think you should be out of prison?
Me right now?
Yeah. Do you?
At this point, in my opinion, I'll never get out of here. No, I'm too old.
I'm not asking if you think if they'll let you out. I'm asking you.
Oh.
You think you should be out on the streets?
Boy, that's a tough question. Based on what I did know.
Okay.
Am I the same guy that did that? Am I the one who did that? No. I mean, but I get it. I get why they don't want to let me go. Believe me, I fully understand.
Dude, I can't. I think that was another person that did that. You were 14.
No.
But dude, I can't fucking imagine you being out on the streets. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Oh yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's good.
Fucking, I mean, we're not even finished yet, and I'm already just repulsive, man.
I know.
I just hate the fact that something didn't happen for you to get help. It's fucked up.
In the days leading up to his crime, it's likely that Billy played this evening out over and again in his imagination. Perhaps he envisioned himself as a character on a TV show, guns blazing, knocking down bodies like cheap plastic mannequins. But the bloodbath Billy had unleashed was far from the epic thrill ride he might have imagined it to be. In reality, Billy was a scared kid who had bitten off more than he could chew. Taking a life wasn't easy. It was chaotic and grisly, and things quickly went haywire. Unknown to Billy, George Swift's .22 pistol had room for just 2 bullets. Now that Greg was shot down and Billy hadn't yet aroused suspicion, there were 3 potential victims left to suffer Billy's killing spree. But a single bullet to the head didn't kill Steve, who was watching TV. He lay convulsing on the floor, barely conscious and struggling to push himself up. 3-year-old Tanya screamed, but when Billy turned to shoot her, he found that the gun chamber was now empty. Instead, he tried to bludgeon the young girl with the butt of the pistol, but couldn't find the strength to do more than injure her. Nothing had gone according to plan when he stepped into the house. In a wild panic, Billy fled to call Ray for help, leaving the 3 kids alone, 2 of them seriously injured. This is where part 1 to this tragedy ends, and we'll pick up next week in part 2 to discover why Billy did what he did. If you don't want to wait a week, you can listen to the episode now via our Patreon. Just head to patreon.com/Voices of a Killer to check that out. Tune in next week to find out how this story plays out on Voices of a Killer.
On the next episode of Voices of a Killer.
Yeah, it gets worse. My stupid ass is running around the house thinking we've got to make this look like a robbery. So I tried to shoot her and nothing happened. So this is what's going through my mind. It's a teenage kid on a thrill kill. That's what it was. I thought it was going to be something cool and exciting to do, and it wasn't. So it was a nightmare. Actually, he handed me the gun back, and when I ended up shooting Steve some more because he wasn't dead.
Jesus, man.
I know.
How are you doing this at 14 years old?
That's why I wanted everything over. I wish it would have never started. It was instant regret. But then I felt like I couldn't stop.
That's a wrap on this episode of Voices of a Killer.
I want to thank Billy for sharing his story with us today. His ability to be open and honest is what makes this podcast so special. If you want to listen to these episodes weeks in advance, you can now do so by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Voices of a Killer. There you will get access to raw interviews, unseen news coverage, and unique correspondence with the guests of Voices of a Killer. Head over to patreon.com/Voices of a Killer to support the podcast. Your support is what keeps us passionate about bringing these stories to you.
A big shout out to Sonic Futures, who handled the production, audio editing, music licensing, and promotion of this podcast. If you want to hear more episodes like this one, make sure to visit our website at voicesofakiller.com. There you can find previous episodes, transcripts, and additional information about the podcast. Lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback helps us improve and reach new listeners. Thank you for your support, and we can't wait to share more stories with you in the future. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Toby, and we'll see you next time on Voices of a Killer.